perhaps ask the question, and with your leave, sir, to have the period extended as at 31st of July 2023. With your leave.
Unfortunately, Honorable Member, I can't give you leave because it's unfair for the Honorable Minister to prepare for that particular question. But I want to also ask you to be careful with respect to the words you use when you said Parliament not meeting regularly. Now, regularity could be once a year, once a month, once every 2 weeks. So I don't know what regular is, and apparently some people seem to have their own definitions for different characteristics of our house. So Honorable Member Mr. Patterson, you're shouting at me? That's total disrespect, please. Yes, so I'm just cautioning you with respect to the words. Sherlock? Sherlock?
Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I will proceed to ask the question in the current construct.
Thank
right?
you. You may proceed.
But Mr. Speaker, I will not fight with you with regards to the comments you made earlier, right? I will not fight with you. The nation and the people of Guyana knows better, and that is my opinion, that the Parliament meets.
You're actually imputing that I'm fighting with you. So please, choose those words very carefully.
Good, Mr. Speaker, but you got to remember to be adults in this house, Mr. Speaker.
Please withdraw that.
We're adults.
Please withdraw that.
Can the Honorable
Please
Senior
withdraw
Minister
the issue of fighting. I cut you off. Please withdraw the issue of fighting with you.
Guided, sir.
No.
Can the Honorable Senior Minister inform the National Assembly what percentage of the total population has been enumerated as of April 30th, 2023? Thank you, sir.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I read this question, sir, with great interest. I want to preface my answer, sir, by providing perhaps an analogy. And with your permission, sir, might I use one of your grandsons in this analogy? Sir, were you to give your grandson a big sack? Were you to give your grandson, well, let's use somebody who is here. Were you to give the honorable member, Mr. Mahipal, a big sack of marbles, and you said to him, Honorable Mr. Mahipal, please count these marbles. And he starts counting these marbles. And midway through the exercise, or 3/4 of the way through the exercise, you stop him and say, Mr. Mahipal, what percentage of the marbles, the honorable member, Mr. Mahipal, and you say, Honorable Mahipal, what percentage of the marbles have you counted? Sir, the computation of a percentage requires two numbers. The whole, typically called the denominator, the number at the bottom of a fraction, and the part, or the number at the top, typically called the numerator. And you take the numerator, or the part, and you divide it by the denominator, or the whole. You multiply it by 100, and you get what is called the percentage. Sir, And so, sir, I rather suspect that Mr. Mahipal would be hard-pressed, halfway or three-quarter way, he'd be hard-pressed to say, I finished 56%, 75%, counted 56, 75, or 86% of the marbles, because he doesn't know how many marbles comprise the whole. And so, sir, to ask what percentage of the total population, sir, the total population will only be known when the census is completed. And so, therefore, to ask what percentage of the total population has been counted thus far reflects, sir, this particular honorable member's persistent in providing amusement to this house and to the people of Guyana. Because the question is completely absurd, and I refuse to dignify it. I refuse to, the census is not complete, and the total population will only be known when the census is complete. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Walter Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I draw the House attention to page 77 of the budget speech by the Honorable Minister responsible for finance. He indicated that of the 10 administrative regions, enumeration continues in regions 1, 4, and 7 because it was hindered by inclement weather, etc. But he went on to say that the census first deliverable, the preliminary report, which is a quick count of the population, is expected to be produced in the first half of 2023. I know we're just 1 month above that deadline. I'm just going to ask the minister where we are in terms of presenting that report to the National Assembly.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Certainly, sir. Let me assure the honorable member that a team of diligent professionals at the Bureau of Statistics continue to work on the census. And that work is advancing. They are doing repeat visits to some regions. In fact, I think another question asked by the honourable member raised the question of, I think that question might come up at a future sitting, raised the question about what is being done about homes that were visited and didn't, that the occupants of those homes were not, met with for the purposes of enumeration. So the team at the Bureau of Statistics is in fact doing that very exercise of going back to the homes that were not enumerated, going back to regions, including those that were mentioned in the budget speech, and I'm pleased to say, and other regions, in fact, where additional work is required. That work is ongoing, and the team is diligently applying itself to the task of completing the census. And so, and so, sir, the report, once concluded, will be made available in due course. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Sharat.
Statements by ministers, including policy statements, personal explanations, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance.
Honorable members, I did receive from the Honorable Member, Mr. Mahipal, a request to move a motion under this heading. I have carefully considered the motion and again applying the standing orders have ruled. The issue here again is urgency and importance, and the urgency factor. This is an ongoing issue But I'll give the honorable member, Mr. Mahipol, a minute to say what this urgent request was.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the request is asked of you, taking note that in the public domain, the government indicated that they will be swearing in the commissioners for the Commission of Inquiry surrounding the Madia dormitory fire. And the request is simply seeking to suggest or for this National Assembly to agree on the terms of reference to submit it to the government, to the executive arm of government for consideration in the Commission of Inquiry. So the request, sir, is, in my view, considered, and the view of APNU, considered urgent on the basis that our National Assembly will not be sitting for the next 2 months because we're going into recess. And given that the government has indicated that they will go ahead and swear in the commissioners and begin the Commission of Inquiry, I believe the National Assembly should be given an opportunity to agree with all stakeholders, opposition and government, to propose the terms of reference for this Commission of Inquiry in the interest of all inclusiveness and inclusivity of the entire representative of the nation. Thank you, sir.
Honorable members, the issue here is urgency. That tragic incident happened over 2.5 months ago, and it was signaled that a commission of inquiry would have been established to look at the particular tragedy. 2.5 months would have been sufficient time for any member of this National Assembly to bring a formal motion to the House, have it tabled, and to be discussed. Questions and motions come in with much frequency in the House and to the Speaker. So unfortunately, at this time, the urgency element once again is not met, and I would not be able to entertain. Sherlock?
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by Minister. Introduction of bills, public business, government's business.
Honorable members, we will now move to the consideration of financial paper number 3, current and capital estimates. The House will now resolve itself into Committee of Supply. Honorable Member, Honorable Minister McCoy, have no problem with you heckling with shouting. You're right on my right ear. Honorable members, the House is in committee, and we will start with item number 1 of financial paper number 3, 2023. Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Is this where I signify the Cabinet has recommended the paper for consideration? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, in accordance with Article 171(2) of the Constitution, I signify that Cabinet has recommended for consideration by the Assembly the motion for the approval of the proposals set out in financial paper number 3 of 2023, supplementary estimates capital totaling 61 billion 13 $1,184,705 for the period 31st December 2023, and I now move the motion.
Honorable member, the motion is proposed. So now we can take item number 1, Agency Code 02023, Office of the Prime Minister, Power Generation, Chart of Account 6321, Subsidies and Contributions to Local Organization. And I now propose that the sum stated on the current expenditure stands part of the estimates. Honorable member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I was seeking your leave prior to you putting the line item to ask a question of the mover of this motion.
You can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, through you, could the Honorable Minister of Finance tell this House why, within 3 weeks, having brought 3 financial papers here, we have not seen his adherence to the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, Section 24(4), which reads, and I quote, "The minister, when introducing a supplementary appropriation bill, shall present to the National Assembly the reasons for the proposed variations and provide a supplementary document describing the impact of the variations, if approved, will have on the financial plan outlined in annual budget presented by him in this House." With your leave, I will ask the Finance Minister to respond.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. The honourable member, Ms. Lawrence, who posed the question, is, of course, a senior member of the APNU-AFC parliamentary team. And I have had the privilege myself, sir, of serving in this National Assembly for at least 1 or 2 previous terms in which alongside her. And I know that she's a parliamentarian of vast experience, including by virtue of the fact that she chaired the Public Accounts Committee, I believe, for at least a full term. This matter has been abundantly and thoroughly ventilated. And the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act has been in place since 2003, to be precise, December 2003. It has been implemented by successive People's Progressive Party civic governments. It has been implemented by an APNU-AFC government. And the format for submission of financial papers has been abundantly ventilated and long settled. And the format that is being used today is exactly the same as was used by the APNU-AFC. The fullness, sir, let me be clear. The fullness of the documentation submitted in relation to supplementary appropriations being sought, the fullness of that documentation has been settled a long time ago. And that documentation, the conventions in relation to the documentation to be submitted when supplementary appropriations being sought have been established, have been debated in this House, have been established, have been followed by a previous People's Progressive Party civic government and by the APNU-AFC during 2015-2020. So there's no innovation in the format of the submission to this House seeking a supplementary appropriation. And our predecessors in office used exactly the same format and set of documentation when supplementary appropriations are being sought. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I am very disappointed. And I must say, Mr. Chair, that, you know, the courts have consistently ruled that this House have the power to regulate its own business. But I want to say here today that this House doesn't have the power to violate the laws of Guyana. I want to put that on record. I will turn my attention to my first question posed. Yes, you put like, sir, you didn't put 02023? Okay.
I did, and
May I, sir, before you put the question, with your permission, sir, respond and say that,
Yes,
may I,
Minister,
sir?
go ahead.
This House did enact the Fiscal Management, FMAA Act, Fiscal Management and Accountability Act, stipulate the requirements in relation to procedures to be followed in connection to supplementary appropriations. We, during our previous term of office, implemented those provisions. Our successors and now predecessors in office implemented those provisions. We have resumed implementing those provisions following the identical formatting of and compilation of documentation in relation to the submissions to this House when seeking supplementary appropriations. And there is, just as there is no violation of the law, now, just as there was no violation of the law in relation to this particular matter while our predecessors were in office. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member Ms. Lawrence, I actually, and I'll propose once again, Agency Code 02-023, Office of the Prime Minister, Power Generation, Chart of Account 6321, Subsidies and Contributions to Local Organization. And I propose a question that the sum stated herein stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the requested amount is for $927,741,000, of which $663 million is for the Linden Electricity Company, and $264,741,000 is for Letem Power Company. The questions are, these are very large supplemental funding relative to what was budgeted. So could the minister kindly explain these wide deviations? Could I go on to ask the second question? I don't know who's answering.
Honorable Minister of Finance.
I'll be answering, sir.
Yes.
And since financial paper 3 is for the period ending the 31st of December 2023, can we expect that there will be no further supplemental funding for these two entities?
Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The amounts provided, as the honorable member indicated, are for the Linden Electricity Company and the Letem Power Company. And it's well known, sir, that the government of Guyana provides financial support through these two companies, Linden and Letem, and indeed in other communities, including and in particular hinterland communities, for the support of electricity. The cost that is incurred is a function of both consumption, the number of kilowatt hours consumed by the community, and the cost of delivering that electricity for consumption. And the principal driver of that cost is, of course, fuel. And in both cases, sir, in Linden and in Lethem, we have been seeing significant increases in consumption and, of course, the pass-through of the cost of fuel used for the generation of this electricity. And so the variation or the additional appropriations that are being sought reflect additional costs that are being incurred as a result of both increased consumption, increased fuel costs, and indeed additional support for things like maintenance at these two companies to ensure that both Linden and Lethem continue to receive electricity as we have committed to deliver to them. In relation to the question asked about the heading of the supplementary paper, once again, the supplementary financial papers are always headed up for the year ended 31st of December because they are an appropriation for the fiscal year. What we're seeking is a supplementary appropriation for the year ended 31st December 2023. I will say that the sums being sought currently represent our current best estimate based on the information that has been shared with us by these two companies. The amounts that are sought are our best estimate with currently available information as to the financial requirements for the remainder of the year. But of course, we will remain very closely engaged with the respective companies to ensure that they continue to manage their operations efficiently. We remain closely engaged with the communities, and were the circumstances so require, we will come back to this house at the appropriate time. But it is based on our current information, this represents the best estimate of what the additional financial requirements are for the remainder of the year, based on information available to us as of today. Thank you very much. As of the day that the financial paper was submitted to this house. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Follow up on this same question. In December of 2022, the government came to this house for additional funds for these two electricity companies. And according to the Honorable Indar, it was because of the increase in the prices for fuel. He stated here saying that that we have to buy fuel at a 65% increase in the cost. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, we're told how prudent the government is in terms of their financing and their budgeting, etc. And they have it all wrapped up in a nice package over there. So my question is, what was the government thinking when they came to this house for a budgeted allocation just 6 months ago? Just 6 months ago. A budget is supposed to take into consideration future increases, etc. So why is it that we are hearing again about fuel prices 6 months after the budget? 6 months after the budget, when this budget is for 1 year.
Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President, with responsibility for finance.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, you can see how the marble analogy hurt them a lot. They're still reeling from it. They're still reeling from it, sir. Sir, if you were to put aside the drama and the histrionics injected into the question just now, the reality, sir, is that when we come to this house with a budget, We seek appropriations based on financial expenditure estimates that are determined on the basis of the information that's available at that point in time. If during the course of the year, we note an increase in consumption beyond our expectations at the time of the budget submission, and an increase and an adjustment, prices are moving every day, sir. World market prices are moving every day as a result of circumstances that we don't have control over. And so I said prices are moving. I said prices are moving. Some are moving upwards and some are moving downwards. And so, sir, the reality is that when you come to the parliament with a budget, you come to the parliament with your best estimate possible. But it is perfectly understandable and natural that if you have new information at your disposal, subsequently, you come back to the parliament and do the proper thing and seek supplementary appropriations, which is exactly what we have done.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the Honorable Minister whether the new 1 megawatt solar fan to supplement the generation in Letem that would have stopped blackouts in February. We want to know, sir, whether the repairs and maintenance that the Honorable Minister spoke of just now, that this supplementary is going to be used, how much of it will be allocated to Letem for maintenance and upgrade after putting in this fancy 1 megawatt solar fan?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. I must say that I'm not sure. Was it a reference to a solar? I think the honorable member spoke of a fancy. Was it a solar 1 megawatt solar fan? Was that what the honorable member said? Sorry, I must admit, sir, that that's a level of specificity of information that I'm not currently in possession of. But were the honourable member to propose a question before the Honourable House, I'm sure it will be answered in due course. But I don't have that level of specificity of information in my possession currently.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In his explanation, the Honorable Minister attributed the cost, the increased cost, delivery costs, and consumption increases. So, sir, just to start off, can you disaggregate that?
Honorable Minister.
Yep.
I don't have in my possession the disaggregation of that currently, sir.
Sir.
Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Well, obviously, I would expect you as the chairman to ask the minister if he's willing to lay it over at some point in time, the disaggregated costs.
So that's what you're asking. Honorable Minister, would you lay it over?
For that request, sir, to be properly put before the House, we'd be happy to respond as we always do.
So, Honorable Minister, I'm putting it, he asks that it be laid over.
Very well, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Right, sir, in line with the answer, there is no provision in here for, and I note how similar subventions and support are given to Madia, Mabaruma, Kakwani, Port Kaituma. Can the Honorable Minister explain if fuels increases it for Linden and Letem, how come there is no provisions here for none of the other agencies?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Sir, there's no mystery. There's no mystery about that. Sir, a budget comprises the best estimates of expenditure required for every single entity. At this point in time, sir, we have not received, the Ministry of Finance is not in receive of, in the first instance, a request from those companies. And we are not in possession of any information to indicate that they'll require additional resources. Were we to receive a request from those companies with the appropriate justification, we'll bring it to this House.
Thank you,
we have
Honorable.
brought to this, we have received, sir, a request for supplementary appropriation from Linden and from Lethem, which we have reviewed and found to be of merit, and we've brought those requests to this House. Simple. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member Mr. Patterson, then we have the Honorable Member Mr. Henry, and then we have the Honorable Member Ms. Lawrence.
Right, sir. I'm coming back to Lethem. Sir, the Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, sir. No, give me this, brother. Opened the Lethem power, the Lethem solar farm, 1.5 megawatts, and waxed lyrically that it would reduce the cost by almost 50% for electricity in Lethem. Can the Honorable Minister responding explain to the House if the solar farm which they installed is operational, and why hasn't it reduced the operation cost and let them by the percentage projected by the Minister, the Honorable Minister of Public Works?
Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Honorable Minister.
Yes, I defer to the Minister of Finance, who has asked me to respond to this question.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the honorable member, thank you very much for that question. But I remember when this facility at Lethem was established and commissioned, and to provide supplemental power to the Lethem power plant. Solar power is intermittent power, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't run on 24 hours. So it's intermittent power fed into the generation capacity at Lethem. It is designed to reduce fuel costs. So I'm answering, sir. You had your chance. You want to allow me to answer? So, Mr. Speaker, you have intermittent power, means only some parts of the day you have sunlight. So when you have sunlight, that power is pushed into the power plant and reduce the fuel cost of the operating cost of the power plant. Hinterland Electrification Company Incorporated, HECI, is run by a CEO and staff, did the analysis of the Lethem power company and found that they need extra money to run the plant, mostly because of fuel. Although there's power to offset some of the costs in fuel, there still is an increase in the amount that is used by the generating sets. The sets there are not all new sets. You have old sets there, you have new sets, but it's not all new operating at the highest efficiency, Mr. Speaker. So it burns fuel. Then you have more demand showing up in Lethem. More people are using power, Mr. Speaker. So you all asked for the answer, giving you all the answer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question came from the Honorable Minister Patterson, Member Patterson, and it's a good question. And I'm providing the answer, but like it's sorting them with the answers too. So the answer is clear that there is demand increase in generation at the Lethem power plant. The power that is generated by the solar plant is intermittent power. It's not what you call firm power. Firm power is when you have generating capacity. Intermittent power is the solar energy assisting with power generation into the grid using a substation here. And the same thing goes for the Lethem Power Company. I mean, the Honorable Member, Minister Singh answered. But the Lethem Power Company is the same thing. Fuel cost is the main driver of operating costs for all of these power plants. And the same thing happened for Lethem, for Linden too. So it is mainly because of fuel costs. Now, when you sit at the end of the year and create a budget to bring to this House, Mr. Speaker, you work on variables that are known at that time. Nobody in this world have a model to calculate fuel price, how it moves up and down. No one. There are millions of models that try to calculate where fuel price will go and where it will not go. Nobody have a crystal ball to say what fuel will be 6 months out. So that is the issue. If you know at the time of preparing the budget what fuel prices will be and fuel price change during the period, it affects you locally. And that is the issue here. So I hope that the added commentary to the question of the honorable member, which I believe is a good question, is a sensible one. And it doesn't have emotions in it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say that a promise was made that we would be paying less for electricity in LATAM, and that didn't happen. One. Two, is it in terms of the staffing at LATAM, is it true that the chairman of the board of management is an absentee chairman? And if so, is he being paid? Because this could be one of the reasons why the cost of electricity cannot go down.
Honorable Member, Senior Minister.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, let me say very clearly that this People's Progressive Party civic government delivers on all of our promises. That will be crystal clear about that. Secondly, sir, I am not in possession of any information in relation to an absentee chairman or any such thing. And so I suspect that's more rhetorical politicking more than anything else.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lars.
No. Yes. Mr.
You know, the chair did rule that one cannot give the floor to the other. Mr. Chair, I would like to move on to line items 2610, 600.
Okay, but if the Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson, has a supplemental on this issue, allow it. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a question to the Honorable Minister. Will these sums, the ones in the budget, as well as the sums being requested now, result in a reduction in the rate of electricity in LATAM in particular? And if not, sir, can the Honorable Minister tell the citizens of LATAM when they will see the reductions, sir?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me say that the purpose of these supplementary appropriations that are being sought is to continue to ensure that electricity is delivered in LATAM and Linden and has no direct relationship with the reduction of rates. Having said that, sir, it's well known that this government is investing very aggressively in improving electricity production, electricity generation, transmission and distribution, and delivery to final consumers, including, not least, with the investment in the rehabilitation of the Maka hydropower plant. That project is already underway and will see ultimately a significant increase in the supply of electricity to LATAM, improvement in the quality of that electricity, and ultimately, we hope, a reduction in the cost of electricity. I might add, sir, that is reflective of our efforts in many other communities. It's well known that we are installing solar capability in Linden, solar farms in Linden under the LCDS-related Guyana Solar Farms project. We are installing solar capability in Essequibo, in Berbice, And of course, we're working on the gas to energy project, which is going to be the subject of discussions in due course. So that work, the task of increasing electricity supply, improving the quality of that electricity and reducing the cost of electricity, is a task that this government has applied itself to across the entire of Guyana, including, of course, both regions 9 and 10 that are the subject of the current item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable members, Honorable Member Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, line item.
If you're going to move on, I have to put this particular line item. I haven't
All right,
put it
when
yet.
you're finished.
Honorable members,
No, Mr. Chairman,
Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
could the Honorable Minister tell us what was the price of oil in January? Wait a minute, we'll get it. In January 2023, and the price of oil now.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Sir, world market fuel prices are readily available in the public domain. And I have absolutely no intention, sir, of doing a simple internet search on behalf of the honorable leader of the opposition. And I will reiterate, sir, I will reiterate that this is not only a question of world market fuel prices. That is one variable, but the fuel bill of these companies comprises the unit price of fuel, the volume of fuel that is called, the CIF to deliver, the insurance and freight to bring the fuel to Guyana, the transport and delivery to Linden and Lethem, and the efficiency with which those companies operate and use that fuel to generate the electricity that they generate, and the volume of demand. So the fuel bill of those companies is influenced by a number of variables, including but not exclusively the world market price for fuel. If the honorable leader of the opposition is interested in determining the world market price for fuel, I might urge him, sir, to do a simple Google search, and there are an abundance of sources on the internet that will tell him what the world market price of fuel is.
And actually, Honorable, before Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the standing orders with respect to questions are quite specific, and it does refer to information that's readily available. We should not put those in the questions. Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Chairman, the Google he talks about says this is 82.5 in January. And because I have a little more sense than you. And the present price is 80.62, which means that there is a reduction. Could the Honorable Minister tell us what are the variables that cause this increase? And the other question I wanted to ask is, could the minister tell us if they do demand forecasting, and what were the demand forecasts at the time?
Before the Honorable Member Minister answers, Honorable Member Ms. Nima Flobes, if you're recording, that light is actually in my eye every time. If you want to get my attention, just press the button, the red light will show up, and then I will note you. Right. Yeah. So no, not yet. Just hold. But the light in my eye, I think, is a bit disrespectful. Yeah. Honorable Senior Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. And I do indeed, sir, appreciate the interest of the honorable leader of the opposition in this matter. Let me, in response, make the following observations. That first, so he asked, his specific question was, what are the variables that contribute to the, like these are, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, these are now my words rather than his, but essentially the variables that influence the amounts that are required. The principal cost that goes into the operations of both Linden and Lethem power companies, and indeed any electricity company, the principal cost is their fuel bill. That fuel bill, sir, is determined by, first of all, volume. So amount of electricity produced. It's determined, secondly, by efficiency. The efficiency with which fuel and other inputs are converted into electric energy for supply to consumers. Secondly, it's determined by the unit cost of fuel delivered at the gate of the power plant. And I add that qualifier, sir, because these power plants buy refined fuel products, typically either diesel or heavy fuel oils. And the cost of delivering diesel or heavy fuel oils to the gate of the power plant in Linden and Lethem is specific to the product being purchased, is specific to transportation and other logistic costs at the particular point in time, is specific to the CIF value of these refined products being delivered to Port Georgetown, which is obviously where the products are typically discharged, etc. And so even in the fuel price itself, through you to the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the world market price for oil is generally a good proxy. The world market price for oil is generally a good proxy, but not necessarily always a perfect proxy for fuel bill, because it's refined product that we're buying. We buy that on the open market. And like I said, there are other variables, including the efficiency of conversion to electricity and the volume of electricity demanded. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Leader of the Opposition.
There were two elements to the question. I asked him about demand forecasting and how they arrive at the figures.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. In relation to the demand, the forecasting of demand, well, I can tell you that what we do have is, I don't have all of the details here, but we do have a historical pattern of demand. Well, not demand, we have a historic pattern, a historic time series of electricity produced and delivered. That provides some predictor of what is going to happen in the future, but it's not the sole determinant, because you have additional housing areas, you have additional connections, additional economic activity, etc. in the communities. But historic demand provides one input into the prediction of future demand. I might add, sir, that there is, this is not done by the forecasting of demand in Linden or in Lethem is not done by the Minister of Finance sitting down at his desk coming up with these numbers. Both of these companies have boards of directors, and they have technical staff working with them who work with a rich set of information. I would like to think that they rigorously apply themselves to coming up with the best possible projections. They share those with us. At the Ministry of Finance, we interrogate them in engagements with the respective parties concerned. And once we're satisfied, we endeavor to make the financial provisions available to them. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Minister.
Chairman.
Leader of the Opposition.
Is the minister suggesting that when this board does what it does and send it to him as the person responsible for the budget, he does not check or question to see if it fits in to the reality?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, perhaps the Honorable Leader of the Opposition suffered an attention lapse. I said very clear, first of all, I did not say it's the board of directors. I said these companies have boards of directors and technical staff, including respective CEOs and technical staff, first of all. So that's the first point. The second point is I made it crystal clear, and the record will reflect, and the Hansard, I'm sure, will reflect that I said that when these submissions are made to the Ministry of Finance, we interrogate them. That's the word that I used. I said we interrogate them to the best of our ability at the Ministry of Finance through a thorough engagement with the concerned ministry and an engagement with the respective companies. And I think the Hansard, I didn't use all of those words, but I certainly said very clearly that we interrogate the submissions that are made to us, and when satisfied, as far as is reasonably possible, we bring these submissions to the House. And so to completely omit that I said that and to insinuate something different in this House is blatantly disingenuous on the part of the Leader of the Opposition. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Chair, my last question. Could you say in your last interrogation of them, if you did point out to them the weakness here?
Honourable Senior Minister.
My apologies, sir. It's my turn now to say I missed a part. My apologies, sir. It's my turn now to say I missed a part of the question. Would the Leader of the Opposition be kind enough to repeat his question, please?
Leader of the Opposition.
You suggest that in response to my question, you interrogate them. I'm asking if in your last interrogation of them, did you point out the weaknesses and the likelihood that their demand forecast wasn't close to the target?
Senior Minister.
I'm not sure what weaknesses the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Leader of the Opposition speaks of point out their weaknesses. I'm not sure what weaknesses precisely are being referred to here, sir. But there are hard-working people working in these companies diligently every day, trying first and foremost to keep the lights on in Linden and in Lethem. They try to administer these companies. They work very hard to manage, to ensure the delivery of service to the communities for which they're responsible. They work with available information to come up with the best estimates. They make a submission to us. We include it in the budget with necessary adjustments if needed. They make a subsequent submission based on newly discovered information or new and emergent developments. We engage with them. Once we're satisfied, once they make a convincing and compelling case to us and we're sufficiently satisfied after having gone through this process of review and interrogation, if I might use that word again, we include it in the request. I'm not sure I don't know if the Leader of the Opposition is suggesting that we should beat somebody in Linden or let them over their heads because they submitted a number and came back and said they needed additional resources. I'm not sure what the suggestion is here at all, sir. But what I will simply say is that there are a lot of hardworking people, there are a lot of hardworking people who are involved in producing these estimates. Not only in those companies, but also in the Office of the Prime Minister, the parent company, the Hinterland Electrification Company, the HECI, as it is abbreviated and popularly known, the Office of the Prime Minister, and a lot of hardworking civil servants in my ministry as well who are involved in this entire process. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Member, Ms. Nima Flo Bess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was cautioned just now about the use of my phone. I would like to bring to your attention that the print on this paper is very fine and makes it difficult for me to read. So that's why I'm having on my phone light. I don't know if this could be corrected. Thank you.
Honourable Member, the light was in my direct line of sight. So every time I turn to the left to see who would ask a question, the light. So if the light was down, right, it wouldn't have been in my eyes. And if you want to get my attention, just press the button, the red light, I will see, right? So you don't have to shine the light in.
Okay, and please note I was not recording.
Thank you.
There's nothing there to record. Thank you.
I don't, it's being recorded.
Mr. Chair.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition. You know, a little bit of respect. I was speaking, I didn't conclude. Yes, the Honorable Member Nima Flo Bess. This session is recorded and broadcast live. So I don't have a problem with I have a problem with the light shining in my eye. Honorable Leader of the Opposition, then I have Amanza Walton Desir, the Honorable Member.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add to get a response as to the size of the fonts. Normally, I read without reading glasses. I have to go and get one to read these. So I'd like to know if it could be dealt with.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, actually, it's a very, very valid point. We have to do something about it because the government has no control over how we reproduce this. This is the Parliament. So please don't impute to Honorable Member Mr. Mahipal. Honorable Member Ms. Amanza Walton Desir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have a quick follow-up for the Minister of Finance. He keeps referring to the new and empirical information that comes to the attention of the technical personnel. I'm curious to know, in terms of the electricity demand forecast models, could he give an example of what is this new information that will come to hand that could change in the manner that it does, his projections as to what the costs would be?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Certainly, sir. In the first instance, it's really, so if a certain level of consumption is projected at the start of the year, and they do this in a relatively detailed manner. I don't have all of those numbers with me now. But you observe, sir, that during the course of the first 3, 4, 5, 6 months, more electricity is being consumed, and in turn, more fuel bill is rising and other inputs are rising. Then I can only, well, I wouldn't say that I can only presume, because I know that they do. What they do then, what the respective companies do, is they make an assessment whether these are temporary increases, some particular factor that might be contributing to a temporary spike in demand, or if there's a more fundamental and underlying reason or justification for the rise in demand. And once they satisfy themselves that this is not just a temporary spike in demand, you might have temporary spikes in demand if you have perhaps some unusual activity in the area concerned or some unusual development. But once they ascertain that there is a more permanent underlying growth in demand, then they update their projections. It's really not, I don't think it's rocket science, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Ms.
Mr.
Walton Desir.
Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Minister that it is not rocket science, which is why it's always very disturbing to see how very far off his projections are. So I agree it's not rocket science, but clearly there is something amiss in terms of budgeting and predicting the demand. And I therefore would want to encourage that we take a look at the models that we're using to project these demands, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Quite the contrary, sir. We are in fact coming to this House in a transparent way to say that we've ascertained that additional financial resources are needed. Quite unlike our predecessors in office who as the history would record, sat down and allowed vast liabilities to be accumulated without coming to this House to regularize the obligations that were outstanding. We have come in a transparent manner to say we have now ascertained that more resources are needed and we're seeking the approval of the Parliament. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, I will now put the question that the sum stated for Agency 02-023, Office of the Prime Minister, Power Generation, Chart of Account 6321, Subsidies and Contributions to Local Organizations, that the sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stand part of the estimates. Chart of account, same agency code, chart of account 260-9500, Renewable Energy Improvement Power System Project. And I propose the question that the sum stated stands part of the estimates. And I propose the question. The Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence, you had a question on this one. And I now put a question that the sum stated for chart of account 260-9500, Renewable Energy Improvement Power System Project, stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Same agency code, same agency, except chart of account changes to 261-0600 gas to power project. And I propose a question that the sum stated now stands part of the estimates. The Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the voted provision of some $43 billion was passed in this House. And now we have a supplementary being requested of over $5 billion. And if you note the supplementary request, it is very specific, right down to the $500. So can the minister provide the details that make up this figure? Also, can he state whether this funding is coming from the Natural Resources Fund or from other sources? And if other sources, can he identify them?
Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, sir. Through you, sir, the honorable member would be aware that this line item finances a number of interventions associated with the gas to energy or gas to power project, including the EPC contract. This is the contract for engineering and procurement and construction of the power plant itself, project management and supervision expenses, components in relation to upgrading the transmission and distribution network in order to adequately and efficiently offtake the power that will be generated by this project, and associated other interventions. But those are the main, the aforementioned are the main components. The honourable member would also be aware, sir, that in relation to several of these components, we've been advancing the procurement of the associated and required works. Some were awarded in the latter part of last year, and some awarded during the course of this year. In fact, sir, it's already a matter of public record that the EPC contract was awarded during the course of, I think, late last year, if I'm not mistaken. The PMC, similarly, but particularly in relation to the T&D, the transmission and distribution network, those contracts, in fact, were not so long ago, I think, publicly signed. I believe it was reported in the newspapers, and I think Prime Minister would have been there, Ministers Ajil and Indar would have been there too. And so what this amount represents, sir, is given the updated projections of how each of these contracts will advance. So the EPC contract, the construction of the power plant for which an international company has been contracted, and that they've already started preliminary work. The supervision of the that EPC contract, again, an international company doing that. The T&D work, that's the bulk of that has gone to an international company, but there's also a domestic component being done, a small, much smaller domestic component in relation to the supply of transformers being done by a domestic company. What this amount represents, sir, is what we anticipate will be the additional resources needed given the pace at which these various components are progressing and payments that we anticipate will fall due. This represents now the latest estimate of what we will require for the totality of the project. In relation to the question asked in connection with whether this is coming from a particular source, the mechanism regarding the utilization of the Natural Resources Fund, I think, is well known, sir. This Parliament approves a resolution, and the transfers are made periodically from the fund. This Parliament approves a resolution in determining the ceiling to be transferred in any particular fiscal year, and transfers are made during the course of the year. those transfers are made to the consolidated fund and expenditure is met out of the consolidated fund. This particular intervention is funded out of the consolidated fund. And so I would hesitate necessarily to tie it to any particular source, and I would say it's funded out of and from the consolidated fund. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think the minister in his response to my first question tried to précis in terms of the various projects associated with this line item, how they are accelerating. But Minister, I would appreciate through the chair if you would provide this House with a progress report and the projected costs associated with it. That's one. My second question is, can the minister provide a status report on the request for funding from the Exim Bank of the USA?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Certainly, sir. Both of those requests can certainly be met.
Honorable Senior Minister, sorry, Honorable Minister, for the Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Lawrence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, can the minister say how much financing has been put into this project by Exxon so far?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Mr. Chairman, in relation to the construction of the power plant and associated investments, including the T&D, those investments are being financed by the government of Guyana out of the budgetary appropriations that are in the budget as approved, and now the supplementary appropriations being sought.
Thank you all, Honorable Senior Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a couple follow-ups to the Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member Lawrence, in her first question, asked for disaggregation, right? And I assume that is maybe it was not clear to the House, but I would like to, can I ask the Minister for financial disaggregation? I know that he listed a whole sort of set of activities and areas under which this is. Can we have a financial disaggregation of this sum now being requested of 5 billion, sir?
Honorable Senior Minister.
That can certainly be provided, sir, and I had anticipated, in fact, that it would have been provided and it will be provided in the report that was, or the update that was requested by the Honourable Member. So it can certainly be provided. I will say though, sir, again through you to the Honourable Member, that the predominant utilization of these resources will be for the purposes of the transmission and distribution project. Thank you very much, sir. But a further elaboration can certainly be provided subsequently.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Can I ask, sir, if any of these monies are going to the payment of lands acquired? If so, how much? Or basically, had the lands to be acquired under this project and paid for? Were they paid for and accepted?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Sir, the Honourable Member is in fact quite correct that there will be some amount of land acquisition involved in the project, as I have no doubt he's well aware. I don't believe that process is completed as yet, and to the best of my knowledge, it is ongoing. I'm advised, in fact, that process is ongoing. And so there will be acquisition and compensation for acquisition, but that process is ongoing. And once concluded, those landowners whose land is being acquired will, of course, receive the necessary payments for those lands in keeping with the relevant laws. I will say that under this provision, subject to correction when the detailed disaggregation is provided, and I want to emphasize that I'm adding that caveat, subject to correction once I provide this detailed aggregation, I will say that to the best of my recollection, land acquisition is not one of the components that is being proposed. Land acquisition, the costs associated with land acquisition will have to be met, but I don't recall, sir, that it's going to be met under this allocation. My recollection is that the main utilization of these resources is in connection with the T&D project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the Honorable Minister detail or explain to this House the transmission and distribution network, which he's coming for, RB? What exactly is it? Is he coming? How are they going to cross the Demerara River? Where are they going to go? Can he explain to the House, or because he's coming for it, so it would have been a detailed project report submitted to him?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Certainly, sir. Mr. Chairman, it is in fact a perfectly valid and fair question that the honourable member is asking. In summary, it includes transmission lines, and this is a very high level, so I readily recognize that it's a very high level summary that I'm providing here. In summary, it includes transmission lines, substations, transformers, etc. We anticipate also that we'll be putting in place control centers, ultimately a new SCADA system as well. And the rollout of all of these will obviously include project management and supervision costs and so on. Those are the main components. Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I recognize that that's a very high level, if you like, a highly aggregated kind of gloss over the main components. But the details, again, there is a detailed articulation of what is involved in this transmission and distribution project. And the main T&D project contract has in fact already been awarded that has a detailed project scope. And so that information is available. I don't have it at hand readily right now, but there is a detailed project scope that is articulated, including in the contract, the main contract or two contracts that have been awarded already.
Thank you, Minister. Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the Honorable Minister's response. Mr. Chair, can I remind you, almost 2.5 years ago, under the same project, the Honorable Prime Minister is not here. In response to a written question, a notice paper, undertook to provide the House with exactly the same information, the scope, the studies, the agreements, and his response was when we have concluded these agreements, sir, they now have that they will be laid here. I'm sure you can recall that, sir. That has not been done. Can I ask the Honorable Minister if all of these have been concluded, and when will he now lay these agreements before the House? And please, don't, I would ask him not to reduce the House to telling me about the National Procurement Commission awards. I would ask them to be talking about the contracts negotiated directly with the government, Exxon, and these other operators.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Mr. Chairman, if I understood the honourable member correctly, he's inquiring when this information will be provided. This was the question that was being asked. Right. So, Mr. Speaker, it would be well known, sir, that work was ongoing on finalizing the scope and design of this project. And I have no doubt, sir, Prime Minister certainly, Honorable Prime Minister certainly doesn't need me to speak on his behalf, but I have no doubt, sir, that he would not have wanted to preempt the outcome of that technical work by submitting to this Honorable House details on the project scope before that had been finalized and concluded. Now that critical elements have been finalized and concluded, including, like I said, through the award of one major contract for the TND, a large contract for the TND, and then a couple of ancillary contracts too. I have no doubt that there is a clearer picture on the scope of the project, and equally, like I said, I have no doubt that there would be any reservation regarding providing this Honourable House with further details on the scope of work, etc.
Thank you, Minister.
In the shortest possible time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Member, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In connection with this same line item, Mr. Minister, there are several, and this is linked to one of the questions asked by Honorable Minister Ferguson quite a while ago. NISIL has issued several leases which the court has upheld to be valid. Can the Honorable Minister say if any of this money here will go towards those lands and that's land acquisitions, or if any of this work area is encroached by the valid leases as issued by NISIL?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chairman, the short answer to that is no.
Thank you. Honourable members, Honourable Member, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on this very line item, picking up from a question put to the Honourable Member, Valda Lawrence, to the member Ashley Singh regarding whether Exxon will be investing in this gas or financing this particular project. And you responded that the monies are coming from the consolidated fund. But my research has proven that Exxon said, right, to the court, claims it will make no profit on US $1 billion investment in gas to energy project. So, and then another article is quoting Exxon to say, Exxon to recover investment in pipeline through sale of gas to government. So can the Honourable Member clarify his earlier response to the question put by Comrade Valda Lawrence, the Honourable Member? Thank you.
Honourable Senior Minister.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that a clarification is needed. I answered in plain English language. The power plant and the transmission and distribution network and associated works are financed by the government of Guyana through the national budget. I'm not sure what confusion there is. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for chart of account 261-0600 gas to power project, that the sum stated herein stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honourable members, let's move to item 2. Agency code 03-032, Ministry of Finance, Public Financial Management Policies and Services. Chart of account 6294. Description other. And I propose the question that the sum stated on the current expenses now stands part of the estimates. The Honourable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Chair, I didn't hear you put 6321.
Sorry, you're absolutely correct. I don't want to make an excuse, but I enlarged my screen and I highlighted the wrong one. Honorable member, I now propose the question that the sum stated for item 1, agency code 02024, Office of the Prime Minister, Telecommunications and Innovation, Chart of Account 6321, subsidies and contributions to local organizations. And I propose the question that the sum stated herein stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair noted that the $648 million being requested here represents some 26% of the voted provisions last February. The entire amount here is going to NDMA due, according to the legend here, the remarks, to expanded work program. Before I request of the minister to provide the full details of this expanded work programs, Mr. Chair, I would like to ask the minister how much of the voted provisions for 2023 have been spent as of June 30th, 2023.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Again, a perfectly valid question. I don't think I have in my possession how much has actually been spent, but I would happily provide that to the Honorable.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, could the minister provide the details of this expanded work program since it doesn't have any capital component? All of this money is for current. So please provide the detailed work program.
Honorable Senior Minister.
Yes, certainly, sir. So in fact, what we're doing is, so these additional allocations, sir, are to facilitate an aggressive build out of the NDMA, well, for a twofold purpose. One, to pursue a more aggressive maintenance program because some of the equipment and network capabilities of the NDMA are somewhat advanced in age. And secondly, to promote a more aggressive build out of their connectivity capability across the regions of Guyana. And so the main components that are being financed out of this allocation of 648 million are procurement of critical spares. So they include general spares, cellular spares, solar and electricity generation spares, and satellite spares, spares for satellite dishes and connectivity. If I might go that again, general critical spares, cellular spares, electricity generation spares, and satellite and connectivity, remote connectivity spares. And in addition to that, additional build out of dedicated internet access, which refers, I believe, to fiber connectivity, cellular internet, and ABS satellite or VSAT connections to the hinterland communities. Those are the main components that will be financed out of this additional allocation being sought.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I haven't heard from the Senior Minister. Is he saying to this House that in February of this year, when the budget was brought, that this expansion was no part of the program of NDMA? Is this a new program now coming on stream? And if so, why at this time of the year?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Sir, in fact, we had anticipated a build out of the NDMA's capability, but that work is progressing with a pace and rapidity beyond our initial expectations. They have been implementing far more aggressively than we anticipated, as a result of which they roll out. As a result of which, the rollout is considerably more extensive than originally anticipated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could the minister kindly indicate to the House what component of this allocation being sought is for the upgrade and the replacement of the equipment that he spoke of?
Senior Minister, Honorable Member.
Certainly, sir. In relation to the spares that I refer to, the total cost of the spares is $294 million out of the total. You will recall, sir, the honorable, through you, sir, the honorable member will recall that there were several subcomponents within spares, connectivity, cellular, electricity, and so on, and I listed those earlier.
Thank you. Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for Agency Code 02-024, Office of the Prime Minister, Telecommunications and Innovation, Chart of Account 6321, Subsidies and Contributions to Local Organizations, that the sum stated herein now stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Honorable members, let us take item 2 before we take the suspension. Agency Code 03-032, Ministry of Finance, Public Financial Management Policies and Services, Chart of Account 6294, Other. And I propose the question that the sum stated herein stands part of the estimates. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the minister is coming to this House 6 months after budget for 156% of what he got in the voted provision. So, and he's saying it's for expanded program for other operational expenses. I want to ask the minister 2 questions. Ms. Minister, how is it that the Ministry of Finance would have underestimated the amount allocated or requested of this House during the 2023 budget in February of this year? That's my first question. And secondly, Mr. Chairman, could the minister refresh the House's memory with the components of the expenditure for which the voted provisions was used?
Honorable Senior Minister.
Certainly, sir. In relation to the latter part of the question, and that is to say, the honorable members request that I refresh the memory of the House. I'm sure, sir, that the honorable member is more than capable, eminently capable, of referring to the record of the proceedings of this House when that matter was considered, and the answers that were provided when questions were asked in relation to that item. In connection with the amount sought, let me say, sir, that under this particular line item, in this instance, this additional amount that is being sought, is included a provision to meet the cost of the financial assistance that is being provided to the families of the girls who so tragically lost their lives in Madhya, and to those who were injured in that tragic incident. I think it's been abundantly ventilated in public that the government has offered to provide some financial assistance, and we've been providing that assistance. We made some emergency interventions at the time, and so a part of this allocation is intended to meet those costs or to recoup those costs that were incurred, and they were incurred in, as one would fully appreciate, they were incurred. We responded in a timely manner on the spot, trying to meet the requirements that were needed at the time, and as immediately as we possibly could. And secondly, sir, legal judgments in relation to matters that are concluded by the court, over which we have no control, but as they arise, costs are met in the event that legal judgments are granted or compensation claims are made. And so that amount is also met out of this subhead from this line from time to time. And those are the main elements of this allocation, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable Member, Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could the minister kindly indicate what part of this $350 million represents the total package of payment towards the victims' families of the Madhya fire? And could he, while doing that, tell this House and the nation what criteria was used to come up with this amount and how much would each family be given?
Honorable Senior Minister.
So here again, this is obviously a matter of, and justifiably so, of great interest and concern. I think as a nation, we all witnessed the horror of the events that unfolded that night and felt the pain, shared the pain of the families thereafter. So it's, without a doubt, the importance of this issue is not to be questioned in any way whatsoever. But equally so, sir, this matter has been the subject of a lot of discussion in the public domain. And statements have been made by the Attorney General. Statements have been made at least by the Attorney General and by the President, no less, on this matter, including, I think, as recently as a day or two ago. And I have, sir, I don't believe there's a necessity, and I have, sir, no intentions of repeating what has already been said and is on public record as having been said by both the President and the Attorney General in relation to this matter, including, sir, the financial assistance that was provided, or the main elements of the financial assistance that was provided to each family. That has already been publicly stated by the Attorney General, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Honorable members, I now put a question that the sum stated for Agency Code 03-032, Ministry of Finance, Public Financial Management Policies and Services, Chart of Account 6294, other, that the sum stated herein now stands part of the estimates. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. The sum stated now stands part of the estimates. Let the Assembly resume. This is a good time to take the suspension.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break.
welcome viewers to, during our parliament sessions, we try to cover what is happening. You were looking all morning at what we will call a question and answering segment where they were examining the financial paper in committee. And you saw the debates, what was happening in terms of the questioning. So they've just broke for lunch. And when they come back this afternoon, we'll continue our coverage. And when they begin to give their debates on the bills that as well will be presented a bit later this afternoon or into the evening, we'll be here as well to break down what has been happening in Parliament. So again, viewers, thank you for viewing our live for this morning session. And do stay tuned and keep, following our pages so that you can get the updates as we go through the day with the paces with our MPs as they ask questions, get answers, and as well debate some of the bills that should be presented today on the petroleum and digital bill as well. So see you a little later this afternoon.